All right, welcome to our workshop here on elevator speeches. Now, I'm going to go someplace that you might not expect today because most of you probably already know what an elevator speech is and what an elevator speech is for. I'll talk about it real briefly here. Most people know that an elevator speech is a 20 to 30 second long, maybe 1 minute long, little brief introduction to who you are and what you do. And if you were at a conference or something and somebody came up to you and said, "Hi, I'm Joe, what's your name and what do you do?" It's a prepared mini speech of this is who I am, this is what I do, and these are my ideal clients. Most elevator speeches are built on 3 or 4 points. One way to think about it is, who are you, what's your product or service, what is your market, and what's the benefit to the end user. And so, you jump on the elevator with somebody and, "Hi, I'm Joe, and I build houses for people so they can have the dream home of their life for an affordable cost." And through that, we hope to engage people in a business conversation. Or I once saw a really nice outline for an elevator speech. "I do, insert your service, for, insert your ideal client, so that they can get the benefit." And that's sort of the basic outline of an elevator speech. And what I find interesting about elevator speeches is that they are one size fits all often. And that can be a good thing because you can be very skilled and adept at delivering it. But the challenge I feel of an elevator speech is it is one size fits all. And you're out in the world where lots of different sizes apply and take forth. And elevator speeches can be really valuable in certain situations, such as you're at a networking meeting and you're standing up in front of 30 people and you need to convey in 1 minute who you are, what do you do, who's your ideal client, and what's your benefit to them. And that can be really, really valuable in those types of situations. But what I have found through time is that one-on-one conversation tends to miss the mark a lot. And there are some methods that I've run across that I think are really valuable. And I don't want to just dismiss elevator speeches flatly, but I want to really provide you today with an alternative to an elevator speech, especially you as a coach. How do you present coaching? Because coaching is unique in the marketplace. It's very different than being a roofer or a lawyer or a consultant. Coaching is distinct, and I think an approach is necessary that's distinct as well to really distinguish yourself and set yourself apart from some of those others. One of the best ways I have found for an elevator speech is to use a really nice metaphor. And there's some people out there teaching metaphors, that are really good at connecting with people, but it often doesn't connect in with the person. They often walk away not really knowing what it is that you actually do. And so I'd like to present to you today an alternative that I think could really serve you as a coach in connecting with people, engaging people from, "Hey, I just met you," to securing a free conversation, a 45-minute consultation, a complimentary conversation, a follow-on conversation. Because the key to any business interaction to me is setting the next appointment. Yes, I want to build value. Yes, I want to make the sale. I want to do all those things. But to me, at the core, at the heart, is setting the next conversation. If the next conversation isn't set, it's just open-ended. It's loose. There's no continuity. And we want that continuity in a business relationship. So let's start off just very simple. I want you to notice what's the first thing that comes to your mind. Just take a moment and notice, when I say these next few words, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Accountant, lawyer, doctor, dentist, insurance salesman, mechanic, and the end-all be-all, used car salesman. Now, most of you probably, I can tell by the reactions, I can tell you had a certain image, you had a certain experience, especially when I used car salesman. we have a preconceived notion of what that means, what that is, who the person is, what they do, what type of person they are. We have a whole stereotype set that goes with that. And one of the very first things that we do in our processing, and it's at the deepest unconscious level, whenever someone says what it is that they do for a living, we immediately categorize it into one of two categories. And those two categories are, I need this or I don't need this. And as soon as we fall into the category of I don't need it, people turn off their listening. They stop listening. If somebody comes up to me and we're chatting over coffee and they say that they are a roofer and I'm a renter, I'm turned off. I don't need their service. I don't have an interest in their service, so I really don't engage. I'm not engaged in the conversation to further go, even if maybe by chance my neighbor has a roof that's failing and might need it. I'm not engaged anymore because I don't need that service. So that's often what happens in an elevator speech. As soon as the other person's able to classify you as your profession, your service, your product, they can categorize you, I need you or I don't need you. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as we move forward, but 90% of the time, we're probably in the category of I don't need this service right now. And so we sort of disengage because we've got our own lives going. We've got our own agendas going. Often, if we're at some type of an event, we're there promoting our own products as well. So it even adds an additional layer of separation between us and somebody trying to provide us the service. So my goal with what I've come up with here and tested over the last 5 years is to engage people in a very, very personal way. A few years ago, I actually took a course on elevator speeches, paid a couple $1,000s, and spent 3 days on crafting, writing, delivering, fine-tuning, honing in on the perfect elevator speech for you. And I did it for a couple of reasons. I did it for my own business and develop my own elevator speech, but I also wanted to look at the structure of it and see how other people did it as well. I wanted to, learn how do people interact in that. At the time, I was working in the world of sales and sales management. And so I really wanted to take it from that aspect as well. So I went through the course, I developed my own elevator speech. I also stayed in touch with many of the people in that program to follow up with them on their results. And what I found through time was we walked away with an extremely high level of confidence, really well-crafted elevator speeches. But as I followed up with people through the process of it, very few of them had really stellar results with it. And it's funny because as I followed up with it and then later on learned a lot of things, found a lot of other research, I realized that the numbers lined up. Most people said they were only successful 1 to 3% of the time in securing an appointment. And wow, that seemed to be like really low in my mind. But later on, I found additional research that actually backed that up and said, this is why that is. And so it started to really make sense several years later as I worked further into the field. And for me at the time, I was actually working in the automotive world. I was working for car dealerships, building internet departments and fleet departments for car dealerships. And so I was working with a lot of car salespeople. And as I was out in the world interacting with people, I was the used car salesman. And I could see in people's faces immediately, as soon as they figured out, no matter what words, what fancy words and metaphors and stories and all this fluffy language that I sort of put around it, at the end of the day, I was a used car salesman. And as soon as that sunk in on people's level, you could see them, oh, he's a used car salesman. Skinny tie and a snakeskin suit. They immediately had a reaction of that. And, of course, being a used car salesman comes with a stigma. I mean, there's psychology research that shows lawyers and politicians are trusted more than used car salesmen. So I get it. I understand. But at the same time, I put a lot of time, effort, and energy in that, and I was proud of what I did. I served people. I like to think of myself as someone who did it in a very ethical manner and connected people with transportation that met their needs. And yet, I only got like 1% results out of this elevator speech. Now, fast forward a bit to this later research that I found, and it started to all make sense. Some of you might be familiar with a man named Chet Holmes, and if you're not, that's okay. I know you're probably familiar with who he currently is working with, and he's a man that a few of you might have seen on TV once or twice, and his name is Tony Robbins. And Chet Holmes works extensively with Tony Robbins and does all of Tony's marketing. Now, if you are familiar with Tony Robbins at all, you'll know that in the world of personal development, he is an amazing marketer. He's probably the benchmark when it comes to marketing in the personal development realm, and even internet marketing for that matter. And the interesting thing about Chet Holmes is that he took Tony Robbins' companies, his departments, some of his sales teams, and these are already super successful teams, super successful sales organizations in themselves, and doubled their sales. This guy is brilliant. He's done it not just with Tony Robbins, but with many, many companies, and some of the most successful companies. Not taking a failing company and doubling, but taking a super successful company and doubling the sales. And one of the things that Chet talks about is in his research is there's like a scale. Think of it as a scale of ready to buy today to there's no way you could get me to buy that. And what Chet says is 1 to 3% of any demographic of people, and a lot of this comes down to the product or the service, but 1 to 3% of the people are ready to buy. Put 100 people in a room and ask for a show of hands, how many of you are in the market ready in the next 2 to 3 weeks to buy a cell phone? You'll probably get around 3 hands. Maybe in that type of a market, 5. How many people are in the market for a new roof on your house? You'll probably get 1 or 2 hands in the room. How many people are in the market for a car? A couple of people. How many of you need to go to the dentist? Well, you probably get 15 or so, but that's because we put that off a lot. But 1 to 3% of people are ready to go. If they ran across the right person today, the right opportunity, they'd pull the trigger and they'd be a sale. From that 3% to about 10%, they're thinking about it, they're pondering it. A really big sale at Best Buy might pull them into the market, but barring a significant movement, something that would kind of push them over, they're more just pondering it, thinking about it. My contract is up in a couple of months and I'm ready, or, I've noticed my car's just about out of warranty, or something of that nature. They're starting to think about it. And as you move down this scale, you get further and further away. But that last 60%, it would take a lot to get them pulled up into the market. It takes a lot to shift them over. And so when you start to think about elevator speeches, that makes total sense. If I'm out there and I've got a one-size-fits-all canned, pre-prepared spiel on this is who I am, this is what I do, and here's how it benefits you. When I get in front of that 1 to 3%, I'm golden. Boom, I landed. Yes, I'm the hero that day because I've given them exactly what they wanted. But with this 60%, I may as well be talking to the wall. I'm probably not connecting in with them at a level that's going to really engage them. And you've probably all been to a conference where, over the course of a 3-day weekend, you talk to 50, 60 people, you stuck their business cards in here in your pocket, and you get home 3-4 days later, you go to take that shirt to the cleaners. Oh yeah, here's all those cards. And you pull out card number 1. I don't remember this person. I don't know what they did. I'm too embarrassed to even call and follow up with them. And you set down all those people. Now that person whose card you just set down, when they talked to you, they probably thought, oh boy, I connected with that person. I'm going to follow up with them and I'm going to do business with them in the next little bit. You all know what I'm talking about. But you've completely lost them. You forgot. Because what's missing? Well, first off, what's usually missing is the continuity. I did not agree to speak to this person after the conference. I did not set a specific time and place for them to follow up. Other than maybe, well, hey, I'll give you a call in the next couple of weeks. And I'd like to propose right up front, that's not enough. You really want to get something more solid, more connected with them. So it's great when we're in that 1 to 3% and we connect with the right person. But I'll tell you, going out and talking to 100 people and only getting 3 results can be really difficult and challenging, especially for new coaches. You're excited about what you're doing. You're wanting to share your passion, your calling, your purpose, your love with people for this. You've got something great to offer, and you get 97 no's. That can be really disheartening to a brand new coach especially. Now, I've already said it, I used to be a car salesman. And one of the things I learned through there was I had really thick skin. I can take a lot of no's. And the mentality that I've developed through that was every time somebody told me no, that excited me because it meant I was one step closer to somebody who said yes. Now, that's not the attitude most people take on. It's hard for most people to think of it that way. If you got 15 no's in a row, you would probably feel kicked in the gut. For me, I'm stoked because I know the next one's a yes. That's easier said than done. And I've realized, especially through coaching, in the last couple of years, I've taught in 7 countries. I've trained hundreds of coaches, and I don't get the sense that most of those people have that attitude. They want everybody to like them. They want people to say yes to them. And when somebody says no to them, to their product or service, they feel like they're saying no to them personally, and that hurts. So there's a big shift that needs to be made here. And complicating that is this field of coaching in general. There's so much misunderstanding about what coaching is in the first place. So many times over the last 10 years that I've been involved in coaching, I'll tell people that I'm a coach. Just sort of off the cuff. I'm not even really trying to sell or anything, but what do you do? Oh, I'm a life coach, or I'm a career coach, or I'm a business coach, or I'm a coach trainer. And the immediate response, you've all heard it, is, what sport? And that alone tells me that there is confusion about what coaching is. And then you've got consultants calling themselves coaches. You've got counselors calling themselves coaches. You've got therapists calling themselves coaches. And it just gets really confusing. And even, take this and go international with it for a moment. I teach extensively in Prague at the Czech Republic, in the Czech Republic, and also in Poland in about 3 different cities. And the interesting thing, in Polish and Czech, there is no word for coach that even comes close to describing what it is. When you say coach in Czech, it actually directly translates to what we would think of as trainer, as far as like a corporate trainer, like a speaker trainer. I come in and I'm going to train you on contact management systems. That's what I'm going to give you today. I'm a trainer speaking behind a podium, transferring knowledge. And that's what a coach, the word coach means there. So it's really hard to describe. So even if I had a great elevator speech and could walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm a coach and this is what I do and this is how I can benefit you, there's a good chance that person's going to get a misunderstanding in the communication because they don't have a clear definition of what a coach is. They don't even know what it is that the service that I offer. And even when some people have maybe even read a book on coaching, they still aren't clear about what it is that I do. Heck, even the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary added coach, life coach, to the dictionary in 2012. And they got it wrong. They used the word advisor. And that is not what we do as a coach. I'm not an advisor. And it's funny because that's one of the most, looked at authoritative places in the world to go for a definition of something. And they got it wrong. That tells me there's some, misinformation out there. There's some misunderstanding out there on it. So as I have gone through this journey, being an international coach trainer, working with hundreds and hundreds of coaches, being a coach to coaches, being an ICF mentor coach and coaching people who are working towards their credentials, I started to really ask myself, okay, what is it that we do? As a coach, what is it that I do? And at the core of what I do is I ask questions. I ask really great questions. I ask deep questions. I ask provocative questions. I ask powerful questions. And it hit me actually one day, and I really have been honored in my life to work with, be mentored by, trained by, and be in relationship with Dr. Marilyn Atkinson of Erickson Coaching International. And it hit me one day when I was listening to Marilyn, and Marilyn said, questions are the answers. Questions are the answers. And it hit me. That's what I do. I ask questions because questions are the answers. And at that moment, it started to move in me, and a lot of things happened, and a lot of gears moved, and a little smoke came out my ears. But it suddenly hit me. Rather than telling people what I do as a coach, why not be a coach in that moment? Why not ask questions? Because those are the answers, and connect with people on that level. And so instead of telling people one size fits all canned spiel, why not make it personal to them? Why not apply what it is that I do, what it is that I'm best at, into that world immediately? And I'm so thankful to Dr. Marilyn Atkinson on many levels. And part of what I'm about to present to you, I owe direct credit to her and the use of the 4 planning questions from the art and science of coaching. So I want to just take a moment and say thank you to Marilyn and all of Erickson Coaching International. I'm going to use the 4 planning questions here. And the 4 planning questions are the stages in a project. And they are, what do you want? What's the outcome, the goal, the desire? How might you get it? The plan. How will you stay committed? How will you get from here to there through the long term? And finally, how will you know you got it? And there's lots of variations of that out there in the world. Those are the 4 planning questions as Erickson uses them. What do you want? How might you get it? How will you stay committed? And how will you know you got it? And I'm very grateful to have those at my dispense and to be able to use those tools. Now, you might be saying, okay, Tony, what's the result? What can I expect here? Personally, when I apply this strategy out into the world, I can set about 70% appointments from it. Now, 3% with an elevator speech to 70%. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to get 70% results. I have had some cases, some students who have taken this, practiced it, gone out and applied it, and they report back to me that they, on average, are setting about 50% of results. 50% setting appointments in that moment. So 3% to 50%, I think that's worth your time to maybe give this a shot and try it out and be willing to go there. So, what's the strategy? Let's get to it here. So the strategy is very simple. As soon as someone engages me in that conversation and asks me what it is that I do, I sort of redirect it slightly. Now, most people in this conversation are expecting an elevator speech. They're expecting an immediate spiel of, this is who I am, this is what I do, and here's how you can benefit today. Enroll here. And that's the expectation. And what happens when I switch that is I immediately mark myself as different in their mind. So there's a huge benefit here right out of the gate. So what I do is I flip it a little bit and I say something, and you may want to word this differently than I do. I've got lots of variations. Well, it's a little complicated. It's a little different. What I do is unique. How I serve people is different depending on their needs. But then I immediately switch that, sort of redirect to a question. Can I ask you a question to give you a quick experience of what it is that I do? Now, this again really grabs people's attention because they're not used to being asked a question at this point. They're used to being told something. They're used to somebody's spiel. And so I often get really, like people sort of hone in. They stop. Rather than looking around the room for who they're going to talk to next or how can I get away from this person, it sort of redirects them. I've got a window of opportunity there for just a moment where I can capture their attention and get them in. And then I simply ask them a very straightforward question. And this is built on the 4 planning questions that I just briefly mentioned before. And so here's the question. Have you ever had a time in your life when you knew what you wanted? You had a goal, you had an outcome, you had something you desired that you wanted to accomplish in your life. You had a plan. You knew how to get it. You knew exactly what it was going to take from A to Z to accomplish it. But you had a tough time staying committed through the long term, through to completion. Have you ever had that happen to you? Well, inevitably what I get is a laugh, a yes, and a nod. Of course, that fits everybody. We've all had something in our life that we wanted. We know what it takes to get there, but we have a tough time following through to completion so that we can have what we really want. We've all said, I want to weigh X amount of pounds. I know it's going to take eating differently and exercising, but when it comes to engaging in that through time, going down 6 months, going 6 months down the line to having it, it's a challenge. I want to put away money for retirement, and I know that it's going to take savings and investing in this, but doing it, we fall down. We tend to fall down there. And that's where I really engage people in my coaching. This is exactly what I do. This is a great definition of what I do. And so what I do then is I turn it to them and I say, what I do is, because I remember I've got they've lightened up, they've laughed, they've agreed. Well, yeah, that's me. And so then this is what I do. I recap that really quickly using the 4 planning questions. What I do is I help people redefine and set really great, powerful goals. I help people clarify and set awesome action plans that are really, really workable. Then I go through time with them to help them stay committed, connected, and engaged through time so they can have what they really deeply want in their life, to have a richer, more fulfilled life. So I just recap quickly. What I do for people is set goals, develop action plans, and help them stay committed. I'm emphasizing this third step because this is where people fall down. This is where people tend to struggle. You and I all know we all have those struggles to stay committed through to completion. Now here comes the really meaty part. That's the easy part. Here comes the part where I really connect with people. And I have a couple of different transitions. Again, you may want to make this one your own. But the transition is simply this. Now, I know we just met. I know we've only known each other for 45 seconds. I know this is kind of jumping right to the point. But let me ask you a question. And that question is, sorry. So I transition. I know we just met. We've only been chatting for 45 seconds, but I'm wondering, what's one little tiny area of your life where that's true right now today? What's an area of your life, something small, nothing life-changing, no big, great vision for your life, but what's an area of your life where you've got a goal, you know what it's going to take to get it, but you're falling down on staying committed through to the long term? And I'm specifically asking for something really small, a little small chunk. Something, clean out the garage, change the oil on the car, clean out the pantry, something little, clean up the backyard. And that's where people, when you ask that and you don't have that relationship yet, people will start very small. And I'm starting there for a purpose. I want to start small because I want them to be willing to share. I don't want them to make up something, and I don't want them, sort of laying out their life vision either, because that then requires a different strategy to work with. So they come and they say, okay, well, I've been really meaning to get my garage or my basement cleaned out for months, and it just hasn't happened. And that's fine to start on that small chunk. That's where I want them at because they're comfortable talking about cleaning out their basement. Then I simply ask them a couple of values questions. So I'm wondering, if you had your basement cleaned out, what would that do for you? And they sort of might come back with something, oh, well, then my wife would be happy. And they'll sort of give you an off-the-cuff answer. It's not really connected yet. It's not deep, but they'll give you sort of this generic answer that they've already thought about. They already know. Well, then I could park my car in the garage. Wouldn't that be great? But I continue down that line. I ask some values questions. What would having that do for you? How would that serve you? If you had that, what would that do for you that's even deeper and more important? And I elicit out, I draw out till I get an honest to goodness values answer. Well, it would just let me relax and enjoy my basement, or I could just get that off my list and just enjoy my weekend. And I keep sort of asking as much as I can, getting in rapport, asking some deep questions. I want to get a couple of values. And if I can really get connected with them in a couple of values, I might even ask them an identity question. So if I could help you, if you could have that really relaxing weekend and focus in on some of your other projects, how would that serve you in becoming the type of person you're trying to become in this time? And so I go for an identity question, something deeply important to them about the kind of person they want to be. I want to connect with them at their deepest levels. And if I can get them to that emotional place, to that emotional state, now I've really hooked them in. And I know I'm going through this really briefly. This is extensively written out in our manual that goes with this training. So it's really well spelled out, and there's lots of variations in the manual, and we'll connect you with how to get that manual for this training at the end of the video. So that'll be being sent out to everyone. So if you're not following along, just stay with me here, because there's a lot of details there that I can't cover in our time. So once I've got those values and maybe that identity, I sort of come back to it and I say, okay, so Joe, if I could help you get your garage cleaned out so that you could really enjoy your weekends, relax and get rejuvenated, so you could take on the things you want to take on in your world, would that be worth a complimentary or free 45-minute conversation with me next week? And that's where I'm going for this, to set this appointment. I'm using their values words back to them exactly as they expressed them to me. That maybe that identity or that higher purpose that I've connected with and drawn out of them. Using my coaching, it's personal. It's very, very hard for them to say no to their own words. If they've said, well, I want to clean out my garage so that I've got this, or let's use basement. I want to clean out my basement and really, be able to use that space to spend quality time with my kids so I can be the kind of father I want to be. Imagine that I say to this person, so would it be worth a 45-minute free conversation next week if I could really help you get your basement cleaned out so that you can redesignate that area of your home as a family space so you can connect deeply with your children and be the kind of father you want to be? Not just there, but throughout life? Would that be worth a complimentary conversation? It's going to be very, very hard for them to say no to that. This is where I land 70% of people, and I set a specific permission to have a conversation with them. I want the continuity. I want to land that with them. I want to connect with them in that. The more specific I can get, the better. If I can actually set a specific time, day, and way of communicating, like we're going to do it next Tuesday at 4 p.m., great. If I can't quite get that, I'll call you on Monday or Tuesday next week to set up a time to have it. That's okay. But I really want to get exactly a time and date with that. Now, I know in different parts of the world, different people, different cultures, different genders, there are a lot of variations of this that are appropriate and inappropriate. So you may have to adjust this depending on the person that you're in front of. My ultimate goal is permission. Permission to directly contact that person. The more specific I can get, the more powerful. Now, take this all and sort of wrap it up here for a moment think about that person going back to their office and they've got this pocket full of cards. This is the person that I talk to about becoming the kind of father or mother or leader that I want to become in the world. They're going to remember you. And you've set up a time to speak with them that's a little more specific than, hey, I'll call you sometime. Make yourself stand out. I promise you, you'll get more than 3% results if you implement this and integrate it. So I hope you found this very useful to you. There will be details on how to follow up and get the manual for those of you who are watching this on video. There will be details on that. If you ever need to reach me, the one place you can always reach me is at TonyHusted.com. TonyHusted.com. That's my personal blog site that is it kind of covers all of the aspects of who Tony is and what I'm up to in the world. But you can always reach me there and many other places. But that's the one place you can always reach me if you need to connect with me in the future. Thank you for your time and your attention, and I hope this serves you in becoming the kind of person you want to be as a coach.